Today, we're taking a look at 13 Days, a movie that is all about negotiation and about one of the most consequential and complicated negotiations of the 20th century, the Cuban Missile Crisis. Let's look at this scene between the Soviet ambassador to the United States and the Attorney General of the United States, Bobby Kennedy.
At this moment, the President is accepting the terms of Secretary Khrushchev's letter of Friday night. If the Soviet Union halts construction immediately, removes the missiles, and submits to UN inspection, the United States will pledge to never invade Cuba or aid others in that enterprise.
If your Jupiter missiles in Turkey were removed also, such an accommodation could be reached.
That's not possible.
The classic quid pro quo in negotiation. So, to set the stage and to remind those of you who, like probably almost everyone watching, was not alive when this happened, the Soviet Union had put nuclear warheads into Cuba, threatening the safety and security of the United States. And there were these really different forces within the Soviet Union, a hardline force, and then a more softline force, a more softline approach that seemed willing to negotiate. And so the dilemma here for the Soviet representative and the Attorney General of the United States was, is there a way the two of us can solve this problem and manage the respective hardline positions within each of our constituencies? And so what you see here first is this classic, the United States is accepting an offer and suddenly there's a quid pro quo. This is only yesable if we get something in exchange.
The United States cannot agree to such terms under threat. Any belief to the contrary was in error.
You want war?
I love this because so many times in negotiation, we think the way we get a concession is by making a demand or a threat. If you don't do this, I will do this. But here's the problem with that. It misses an important lesson in negotiation. Negotiation is all about getting the other side to do something. And there are at least two main ways of doing this. One is I force you into the corner, use my leverage, and force you to say yes. That can sometimes work when I have more power. But even when it does work, what I get is a begrudging person who is resentful. The better way to negotiate is to think about, how do I give them something that is yesable? And if I want to give them something that is yesable, when I use a demand, that is never yesable. If you say to me, I demand that you agree the sky is blue, from an emotional perspective, I'm going to be like, not blue, sky blue. So this mistake, right, we often hear the union demands that management increase healthcare coverage or raise our salary by 5%, or the American Secretary of State demands that. As soon as you set up a demand, as Bobby Kennedy says here, no one can accede to a demand. So it is a common negotiation tactic. It almost always backfires, and it's going to be particularly likely to backfire when there's a public constituency that will see if you cave under that pressure. So how do we get out of this situation? Because it turns out, happily, there was not a nuclear holocaust as part of the Cuban Missile Crisis.
However, while there can be no quid pro quo on this issue, the United States can offer a private assurance. Now, our Jupiter missiles in Turkey are obsolete and have been scheduled for withdrawal for some time. This withdrawal should take place within, say, 6 months. Of course, any public disclosure of this assurance would negate the deal and produce the most stringent denials from our government.
This private assurance represents the word of the highest authority.
You know, as a international policy negotiation politics nerd, I love this scene because there is so much to mine here with respect to negotiation. And it's brinksmanship, but it's also making use of some really important ways to create some value in a negotiation. First thing I want to notice is to break the impasse, there is an offer to remove obsolete American missiles from Turkey, but not to do it immediately. If it were done immediately, it would look like the quid pro quo, which the United States cannot agree to, as we said, because it means acceding to a demand. So what Bobby Kennedy is doing here is something that is a negotiation best practice, which is that we are creating value by expanding the time continuum. We're going to do this in 6 months. By expanding the time continuum, we can often create some value in a negotiation. And I've seen this happen. This is a high stakes negotiation. I've seen it happen in other contexts. For example, I might want to buy a house. I don't have the down payment now. I can't afford the down payment. However, the house is on sale now. I need to buy it now. In 3 months, though, I'm going to get the advance from the big new job that I have. If you let me buy this house now, in 3 months, not only will I pay you the deposit, but I'll give you an extra 15%. So again, what we're doing there is we're using time as a way to create some value. That's the first thing Bobby Kennedy does. The second thing he does, which is so critical in high stakes negotiation, is he says this can only happen if it remains confidential. As soon as this goes public, we have to deny it. And one of the real challenges that I think we have in our current political climate is that high stakes international negotiations, high stakes political negotiations really only happen well when they could be done in secret. But because of social media, and because there is this general idea that transparency is always good, negotiations that are cut in secret are sometimes called backroom deals. They have a negative connotation. But whether it is averting nuclear war, or whether it is a peace negotiation, so for example, in 1993, when the Oslo Accords between Israel and the Palestinian Authority were reached, most of that was done in secret. And part of the reason why is that secrecy allows each side to share some information, to become more vulnerable, knowing that it isn't going to hurt them if it becomes public. And so that other move that Bobby Kennedy makes here is really critically important. The last important thing is a move made by Ambassador Dobrynin. When he says, so this offer that's on the table comes from the highest authority, what he's doing is covering himself in a way that many negotiators fail to do. He's basically saying, do you have authority to make this deal? Many times in a negotiation, as a difficult tactic, a negotiator is sent, and he's really there, or she's really there, to try to see what the other side might agree to. And then they say something like, well, I need to go check. And so Dobrynin, right, before he says yes, wants to make sure, has the President of the United States signed off on this? Or are you just here trying to seek information to see how far I'll go? So, lots to mine here in negotiation. As a reminder, first, right, when we set up a negotiation under terms of demands and quid pro quo, it becomes incredibly hard for either side to say yes. But we can give up or we can be creative. And the way we become creative is by thinking about how do I create some value by expanding the time frame, by looking for differences between the parties. How can I use a quiet, private channel to be more transparent, but then also really important, before I say yes, I want to make sure that the other side has the same level of bargaining authority that I do. So we can learn so much from negotiation, from watching movies and TV, and in this amazing, cool clip from Better Call Saul, you'll have a lot of fun and get some more negotiation tips. So you want to keep on watching. So don't forget to subscribe to this channel, hit the like button, and ring the bell. There's a lot more fun, so keep on watching. Click, 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 click.